Believe it or not, I was pregnant for 3 years. Sounds crazy? Well, it's true. My husband and I were always trying for a baby. We desperately wanted one, but I never managed to get pregnant. It was so unfair because all of my brothers and sisters were getting married and having beautiful children, but I was apparently unlucky. My husband and I were so scared we were infertile, but we still had hope. But before I dive in any further, please make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell for more crazy videos like this one. We were considering surrogacy or adoption, but we really wanted a baby of our own, and we couldn't afford to pay for either of those methods. Then one night, I was in the kitchen and I felt something move in my stomach. It felt like a sort of bubbling, churning sensation. It was so surreal. At first, I thought I had eaten something bad or had a stomach bug of some sort. But then I started to think, wait, could this be a baby? Was I pregnant? I didn't want to tell my husband yet because I didn't know for sure, but I was convinced I was pregnant. Even before I did the pregnancy test, I rushed to the store, bought a test, hurried back home, and rushed into the bathroom. I looked at the tiny screen, and it said if there were 2 lines, I was pregnant. If there was 1, I wasn't pregnant. I hoped and prayed I would get those 2 lines. And sure enough, as I looked at the test, there were 2 lines. I was pregnant. I immediately burst out crying with joy. I was so thankful. I ran to tell my husband, and he was so elated, and we were so happy. Finally, we could start a family together. We rushed to get everything ready for the baby. We told our families at a huge dinner when we invited them all. We started preparing a room in the house for the baby. We painted it this lovely green color as we didn't know the gender yet. We started buying baby products like clothes, toys, and more. It was all so fun. My stomach got bigger and bigger, and we could feel the baby kicking around. I had to stop working because since I worked at this coal factory, I couldn't really move the equipment as well as I used to. And my husband and I agreed it would probably be best if myself and the baby didn't breathe in the fumes at the factory. This was a pretty tough decision though, seeing as we didn't have much money and now we were losing another source of income. But it was the best for the baby, so we decided it was the right choice. I used this baby monitor machinery thing that I bought online that said it amplified the baby's heartbeat. We used it and we were so glad we could hear the baby. Its heart was beating so loudly and I started crying instantly when we used it. My family was so happy. My husband was so happy. Everything was right in the world. My husband and I also decided we wouldn't bother having doctor appointments throughout the pregnancy. For starters, they were incredibly expensive and we just didn't have the money. Secondly, we already had our own baby monitor device, the one we bought online, so we didn't need to worry. As long as we could hear the baby's heartbeat, everything would be fine. My due date was coming up, and we were so excited. I wondered what the gender of the baby was, but I didn't care either way. I would love it no matter what. But then, the due date came and went, and I hadn't given birth yet. My stomach was enormous by this point. I had been eating a lot because I heard you were eating for 2 people, right? Then a week after my due date, there was still no baby. We were starting to worry. We used the baby monitor device again, and we could still hear the baby's heartbeat, so it was fine. Maybe it was just taking its time to come out. We joked around that it liked staying in there too much. It didn't want to go out into the big wide world. More and more time passed, and then it came to 10 months. I was 1 month overdue. When would I give birth? Then, a year. We were really concerned and we searched online, and it said sometimes pregnancies can last longer than 9 months. The world record for the longest pregnancy was 375 days. But my pregnancy soon surpassed that, and we still had no baby. I was so worried. My belly was huge, and there was no doubt in my mind that I was pregnant because our baby monitor proved we could hear the baby moving around. We could hear its heartbeat. But why had I been pregnant for so long? This was not right. It was universally known that a pregnancy lasted 9 months, right? So what was wrong with me? We used the baby heart monitor again, and the heartbeat was still going just as strong. So we decided we would trust our baby. Let the baby decide when it wanted to come out. I also felt somewhat proud. I must be a really good mother considering the baby wanted to stay inside me. It must be really nice there. Time passed, and it was 1.5 years already. Our families were so confused, and we didn't know what to say or do or think. They told us we should go to the doctor, but we didn't have enough money to pay. We were barely affording to feed ourselves. Eventually, our family said I must have had a miscarriage. I must have lost the baby. I was so upset, and my husband and I told them not to say such a thing. We could hear the baby's heartbeat through the monitor. Of course I was pregnant, but they didn't believe us, so my husband and I decided to cut off ties with them. If they didn't believe us, then why should we bother speaking to them? Years passed. I got used to the big belly, and I just believed that my baby was taking longer than most to come out. I had been pregnant for 3 years. When would I give birth? But then I wondered, would that mean when I did eventually give birth, the baby would be 3 years old? That would be massive. I was so worried, and I told my husband we had to go to the doctors. I didn't care if we couldn't afford it. I was worried for the baby and my health too. How would I give birth to a baby the size of a 3-year-old? We went to the doctors, and they hooked me up to a monitor. The doctor looked around on the screen and stayed silent for a while. But then she spoke up and told us I wasn't pregnant. I just had a big belly. We were shocked, to say the least. We almost didn't believe her. We told her about the baby heart monitor, the one we bought online. Just yesterday, we had done another scan, and it had played out our baby's heartbeat just as loudly as ever. Surely there was a baby inside me. But she explained those didn't always work. Sometimes they just played out heartbeats, even when there weren't any. What are you talking about? I cried out to the doctor. She nodded her head sadly. I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but it's true. You're not pregnant. Those baby heart monitors you bought were faulty. You should never buy something like that from some random online company. You can't always trust them. But you could always try to get pregnant again. But, started my husband, why does she have a big stomach then? The doctor looked uncomfortable. Well, that is just flesh. It's not from any baby. My mouth fell open in shock. So, this is just fat? The doctor nodded. I'm afraid so. But don't lose hope. Getting pregnant again is always an option. You should try. I nodded absent-mindedly. I couldn't believe it. All this time, all 3 years, I had believed I was pregnant. But it turned out all of that was a lie. I was just fat. I started crying, and my husband held me close. But then the doctor seemed to jump as something lit up on the monitor screen. She swiveled the mouse around frantically and scratched her head. What is it? I asked. The doctor didn't answer me, just called another doctor to come in. He walked into the room, smiled at us, and looked once again at the screen. My husband and I had no clue what was going on, but the doctors looked worried. Then one of them eventually addressed us. I'm sorry, miss, but you are in fact pregnant. I looked at him in alarm. What? But you said I wasn't. Our apologies. This is a very unusual case, you see. Never has there been a woman that has been pregnant for 3 years. So I have a baby inside of me? Well, no, you don't have a baby. I raised my hands in frustration. What are you talking about? Am I pregnant or am I not? The doctor nodded. You are pregnant, just not with a baby. So, the doctor took a deep breath. You're pregnant with 3 babies. You have triplets. My husband gasped, and I raised my hand to my mouth in surprise. Triplets? The doctors nodded, but there was more. She said, it seems you have been pregnant for 3 years, but the babies have been, how should I say this, dormant. What does that mean? It means they haven't grown at all in that 3-year period. It seems you are fertilized, but your babies just haven't been growing. Well, what do we need to do? We suggest having surgery. We have methods of encouraging the babies into growth. If we succeed, you can expect triplets in 9 months. 9 months? Not 3? Yes, 9 months. No, but wait, said my husband. We don't have enough money to pay for the surgery. Oh, about that, said the doctor. The U.S. government will no doubt provide funds for your operation. You see, this is a very special case. As far as we're concerned, this has never happened before in human history. I couldn't even really process what they were saying, but I was just happy to find out I really was pregnant, but with triplets. Oh, could we handle it? Thank you, I said. But what about funding for raising our triplets? We're poor people. I'm sure the government will help with that too, but in return, you will allow us to check in every now and then just to make sure things are going smoothly. Of course. It was only a week later when the surgery was conducted. I was put under and they sent in some sort of chemical that activated the fetus and encouraged the babies into growth. When I woke up, my husband was there looking very worried, and the doctors told me everything had gone perfectly fine. Congratulations, they said. You are now officially pregnant. You can expect triplets in 9 months. I was crying with joy. Everything did work out fine in the end. It is now 2 years later. And yes, I did give birth to triplets in 9 months from that time. 2 boys and 1 girl. All healthy, all beautiful. We named them Aiden, Alex, and Amy. They are now growing up into amazing children. And as it turns out, I got pregnant again. I now have a huge belly. And don't worry, we checked with the doctors. I am definitely pregnant. No dormant eggs. No 3-year pregnancy. I couldn't be more excited. You probably think I'm stupid for trusting that baby heart monitor from online, but when you have a heart monitor that tells you there's a baby inside you, you believe it. I guess we should have gone to the doctor sooner, but we were really poor. But I'm happy to say now that I am pregnant. Really, truly. The doctors performed a scan and showed us the image of our little girl. Now those can't be faulty. I'm due in 3 weeks, and we're so excited. Let's hope this doesn't turn out into another 3-year pregnancy.
I had an ordinary life with an ordinary family and ordinary goals. But all that changed after I Googled my family. I wish I never did it. But let me start from the beginning. The very beginning. I was born on the 2nd of November. I grew up with my parents in a small town with a really small population. I had no siblings, no grandparents, no aunts or uncles, but I didn't care. I had my parents, and that was all that mattered. My parents never really told me about my ancestors. I knew I was a mixed Italian-American, but that was the full extent of my knowledge. Other than that, I had no clue who my grandparents and other relatives were. But I guess it never bothered me growing up. I didn't really think about it. My parents never mentioned them, so I guess I didn't think about them either. But it wasn't until 6th grade, when my other friends at school would talk about going to their grandparents' house on the weekends, and the amount of presents they got on their birthday because of their relatives. I admit, I was jealous. Was I missing out? Why didn't I have any grandparents or relatives? How come my parents never spoke about them? I decided I would ask my parents about them. Why couldn't we be like a normal family? Why couldn't I have loads of relatives to bring me gifts? That night, I walked right up to my parents. "Where are my grandparents?" I asked. They looked at each other confused. "What?" said my mom. "How come I don't have any grandparents? Everyone else at school does." "Oh," began my dad. "Well," he seemed to hesitate, but then he continued. "They passed away, Franco." I paused. "But what about my aunts and uncles? What about my cousins?" My mom spoke up. "Well, your father and I don't have any brothers or sisters."